TCU found an under-the-radar recruit who's going to start in week 1 of the season. That's at least what Sonny Dykes says. We'll talk about it more next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. Thank you for tuning into the show and making Locked On Horned Frogs your first listen. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We're brought to you today by Gametime. If you need tickets to the next sporting event, concert, whatever it is, check out the Gametime app today. Download it. I'll have injury updates for you later on in the show. Got a couple of players on defense, one with an injury that appears to be pretty serious, a couple more guys who just seem to be banged up and will be returning to practice soon. But we start today. This is an exciting freshman class. This true freshman class that is on campus right now preparing for the 2025 season. They were very highly rated, and there were a number of guys that we thought could and should be immediate contributors. There was one name, though, that Sonny Dykes singled out in a press conference over the weekend that some of you might not be familiar with. Jacobe Hays, a wide receiver from Midlothian, Texas, who was committed to North Texas up until, I believe, signing day was when he flipped and signed with TCU. And it was one of those last minute, okay, I'm making the choice to end up at TCU instead. Let's get the paperwork signed and move forward. But here's what Sonny Dykes had to say about Jacobe Hays on, I believe it was Saturday. And this is from Stephen Johnson from the 4-Star Telegram. Coach Dykes says he would be surprised if Jacobe Hays isn't on the field on the first play against North Carolina, likely in a special teams role, but Hays continues to be the breakout star of camp. Okay, what does that mean? He's saying this is a dude that we think is going to be on the field on the very first play of the season. Now, in high school, Jacobe Hays was a kick returner. So my first thought was, okay, explosive player, really fast, verified like 4.3 40 guy, 10.6 in the 100 meters in track, 4x1 sprint relay person. Like, this is a fast guy. Inside wide receiver, kick returner. That's the vibe I get. I turn on his huddle tape over the weekend. And this might be a weird comparison because they play very different positions. But last week I told you about Keelan Abrams, an outside linebacker, defensive end from DeSoto, who in one season in one of the best districts in the state of Texas had 23.5 sacks. There were 2 other years where he had double-digit sacks. He's just a football player. He's a guy that gets after the quarterback and makes plays, right? He is a ball player. You turn on the tape, you see him constantly impacting the game. High motor, making plays. I'm watching Jacobe Hays. I'm expecting to see the normal traits that you see from a explosive inside wide receiver. Catching screen passes, pop passes, making some plays on special teams, using that speed to break away from defenders. I watched a package of highlights from his game against Midway this past year. He had some of those plays. He had a kick return for a touchdown. He took a screen pass for a touchdown, just a little tunnel screen. Broke a few tackles, ran past everybody for a score. He also had a couple incredible blocks on run plays, outside zone plays where the running back is running outside the tackle and he comes inside and just lights up a corner safety who's coming down trying to make a play. So he showed some physicality there. He had a blocked PAT during the game. Listen to me now. A blocked point after attempt. So my first thought is this is a dude who maybe plays on special teams in the kick return game, but possibly he's running down on kickoff team too, because he's not afraid to be physical. Now, he's not a huge guy. He's 5'10", 180, or at least that's what he's listed at coming out of high school. But again, kind of like Keelan Abrams, maybe an undersized player, even though Hayes not really that undersized for the position he plays. But just a guy that shows up constantly on tape as this is a dude that makes it happen. Now, we're going to have to see what happens once the season starts. Okay, this is still to this point just hype from camp. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean we understand there's a difference between showing up and making plays in practice and then making plays in a game. But this is super promising news because Jacobe Hays was a 3-star prospect who had some decent offers. Like BYU was a team that offered him. BYU's good program. But under the radar, kind of lightly recruited player. And I've said this offseason, with the revenue share agreement coming into play, a lot of changes happening around college football. It's now more imperative than ever to hit on your evaluations. The way Sonny put it at Big 12 Media Days was, they look at players and they evaluate them and they say, are they a good value? Meaning, what type of, just to be honest about it, what type of contract would this guy command? How much attention is he getting? What other schools are recruiting him? If we get in on this recruitment, is it going to be something that pays off for us long term? You still have to find those diamonds in the rough. And to be honest, that's not something that when Sonny took the job, I really saw as one of his strengths. I guess you could say at SMU, he did that by being very effective in the transfer portal, by finding players that were at, Power 4, Power 5 schools. It didn't work for whatever reason. And they had that sales pitch of, hey, you're a DFW kid, come back to Dallas. You can play right away. You can be close to your family again, get your mojo back, and you can contribute. And they did that. Now at TCU, they're still using the transfer portal, but they've made a choice to say, hey, you know what? We're going to use the portal. And the way that we're going to do it is by filling holes on the roster. Primarily, though, we're going to try to build this roster through high school recruiting. So if you're not pulling in 5 stars on a consistent basis, which I would love TCU to do that one day. I'm not saying don't go after those guys. But if you're not doing that, then you have to find a way to evaluate and find players that can play for you, no matter what their star rating is or how evaluators see them. Now, the funny thing is, there's a lot of highly rated recruits in this class. Chad Woodfork, we think, is a dude that can play right now. Ed Small can play right now. Terry Shelton. And hey, they can still do that. Like, just because this guy's emerging doesn't mean these players can't contribute as well. It's just fascinating to me that this is a name that stood out as like, hey, this is a dude that we can't keep off the field. Ryan Hughes, similar story. A little bit different because he wasn't starting in game 1. Really, it was towards the end of the season. But right now, he has a chance to be the starter at left tackle. But Sonny was like, we got him into the facility. We got him in the program. And our expectation for him was it was going to take some time to figure things out and grow and develop. And hey, that's fine. That's most players. But he was so good right away that we have to find a spot for him. Jacobe Hays, football player. Dude that makes plays. And he's doing it, catching the ball too. But he's making so many plays that it's come to a point now where he's sort of forced their hand, and at least putting these expectations out there. And putting those expectations out there publicly means that you're pretty committed to it. You don't say this. Maybe he was asked specifically about him, but it's not something that you just offer up with those types of specifics unless you're ready to make those commitments. So Jacobe Hays, possibly a guy starting right away, making plays for TCU football this fall. Exciting news. It's also intriguing to me because if he does stay at that slot wide receiver spot, unless he moves to the outside, and I'm missing that part of it, suddenly the numbers there is getting condensed. If we think Ed Small is going to be a guy that is ready to play immediately, Major Everhart coming off an injury, you throw Hayes in there as well, Jordan Bailey, clock's kind of ticking, right? Like that's a player that needs to step up and make things happen. Team had a scrimmage on Sunday night. I'm recording before that happened. We'll have more notes about where they are and where they're going next on Tuesday and through the rest of the week. But just know, Jacobe Hays, big time wide receiver. And I mean, again, under the radar, like flipped from North Texas to TCU. The big wide receiver flip towards the end of that recruiting cycle was Terry Shelton. He was committed to Arizona, and TCU just late in the process was able to get him. I think that was like if signing day was on Wednesday, it was a Monday night type of deal. It was leading up to signing day, but it wasn't on signing day. This was just kind of out of nowhere. But a really good job by this coaching staff, it appears, identifying talent and saying, you know what? This is a dude that can play for us and can contribute in multiple ways. I think that's another important thing. Not everybody on your roster has to have that versatility, but you need guys that can be special in multiple phases of the game. And even if it's just a dude who makes plays on special teams, like you have to have players that can do that on your kickoff team, on your punt team, etc. When we come back, more indications that it feels like Kavorian Barnes is emerging as a starting running back. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Before we do that, though, I do want to tell you about the Gametime app. Gametime is where you need to go if you need tickets. It's super easy to use. That's what I love about it. 3 or 4 clicks of a button, and you have tickets on your phone, and it goes straight to the app. So you don't have to sit there wondering, where did it go? Is it in my wallet? Email? No, it's straight there in the Gametime app. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. They have great deals up to the last minute. So if you're not a planner or you just get a wild hair one day to say, you know what, I want to go see a Ranger game tonight, download the Gametime app, check it out. They'll have affordable deals for you, even up to first pitch. They give you a picture of what you're going to see, your view from your seat when you sit down. It's all there. It's super easy to use. Gametime app today. Download it. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. As always, terms and conditions, they do apply. So Cade Bennett spoke to the media. I'll have some injury updates here in a minute as well. A lot of news. Love it. Fall camp. We're getting closer to kickoff. Cade Bennett, left guard for TCU football this upcoming season. I don't think the coaching staff has named him that, but I'm going to name him that. I think this interior offensive line is pretty set. Cade Bennett, Colton Deary moving over to center since James Brockermeyer went to Miami. And then your other guard, a battle between Carson Bruno and Remington Strickland. My prediction is that Carson Bruno will be the guy, but we'll see how that plays out over the last few weeks of fall camp. But Bennett, if you remember, he transferred in from San Diego State last offseason. So not this year, but the year before. And he was like the prize jewel of that offensive line transfer class. They went and got a couple guys, Bless Harris, Carson Bruno, Remington Strickland, dudes that were contributors. Bruno and Strickland continuing to contribute. Bless Harris moves on after he only had one more year of eligibility, so he started at tackle, moving on now. But Bennett was a dude they were super excited about. And unfortunately came in, had a back injury, had to sit out the year, but appears to be healthy. And that's great news for this team. Now, we still don't know who the running back's going to be, the starting running back. And if I had to guess right now, I think it's something that's going to play out over the first few weeks of the season. But I've maintained for a long time, I really thought it was a battle between Nate Palmer and Jeremy Payne. Now, John Denman's a true freshman that they like. He'll have a say in it. Trent Battle, veteran player, he has a say in it. And one guy that I wouldn't say was off my radar, but when TCU landed him, to me, it felt like, okay, you're taking a flyer on somebody, and this is a change of pace player, a third down back, a short yardage back, Kavorian Barnes from UTSA, who had a really good 2 seasons for the Roadrunners in 2022 and 2023. 2024 was disappointing from a yardage standpoint, from yards per carry standpoint, and also didn't get a ton of attempts. Now, the reason I heard for that was dealt with some injuries, some young players emerged, kind of found himself on the outside looking in. That's why he hit the transfer portal. There wasn't a ton of competition there. I mean, just to be real, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just giving you the reality of the situation. This was not somebody who I got the impression TCU was, really fighting with a bunch of schools to land. But his name keeps showing up in practice reports during the spring and during the fall. He's gotten opportunities with the ones, and not only gotten opportunities with the ones, but if they're going team, in a lot of these days, They're going team, first team session, which is good on good, the ones on offense versus the ones on defense. And Barnes is back there starting. So the first couple of days of practice, I was like, okay, giving him some opportunities. But it's happened multiple times. He's been talked about by the coaching staff a lot. And now it's at a point where I'm like, okay, I feel like this guy is getting higher ratings from the staff than from the fans and the media. And hey, that happens every year. Like there's players that we think we're going to pencil this guy in as a starter, and then suddenly competition happens and somebody else overtakes them. But a quote that Cade Bennett had about Kevorian Barnes that caught my eye. I should have looked before I got on here. Let me make sure I can find it so I can give you the correct context. He said, Kevorian Barnes is a dude. He gets downhill and puts his head down, and that's something this team needs. That's from Cade Bennett. So, I mean, that's high praise. And if you think about last season, one thing that Cam Cook struggled with, he was indecisive. There would be plays where there were openings and Cam just wasn't putting his foot in the ground and getting north and south. He would bounce it outside and it wouldn't be there. Or he would run through the wrong gap and get stacked up for a loss or for no gain. So this offensive line needs some work, but the running back situation was part of the problem. So I don't want to make it this simple, but if that was a big part of their issues last year, and Kendall Briles at some point during the spring, when he was asked about the run game, they went and got Randy Clements. Bennett's healthy now. They moved Deary over. They've made a couple adjustments, got young tackles in Whitfield and Hughes. But he also said when they were discussing how to improve the run game, they've really leaned on simplicity. So it's not about how many run concepts can we put out there. It's more about what are the 4 or 5 things that we do well, and let's rep the heck out of it so that everybody's on the same page and we know what we're doing. We know the ins and outs of it. It's not a perfect comparison, but Mike Leach was sort of like that. Now, Mike Leach wasn't somebody who ran the ball a lot, but his offense is that air raid offense that Sonny Dykes, he's from that tree. Now he's running some different systems, but from that family of football, it was predicated on, we've got a small playbook, but we know the plays so well, and there are different options within the plays. And so we have it down to a point where we're experts in it and we can do different things off of it. And the defense still doesn't know always how to react to it. Right. We executed at such a high level that it doesn't matter if you know what we're going to do all the time. So I would love for that to be the case, but just so you know, Kevorian Barnes still making waves. Okay. A couple injury updates before we get to AP Top 25 poll that is getting dropped on Monday. A player so last week I talked about Paul Olawale, defensive end for TCU, who had a really good redshirt freshman season, and then he was injured last year with an Achilles issue. Another player that has dealt with injuries through his career but has been productive when he's healthy, Michael Ibukun Okeode, who was a defensive end and then had moved out to that outside linebacker stud position this year. He had a very scary injury. According to Sonny Dykes, on Wednesday, Michael left practice on a stretcher. He spent 2 nights in the hospital. Thankfully, he is out and walking around now. It's unclear when he'll return to practice, but it sounds like he avoided a major issue. So first things first, prayers to Michael. I hope he's okay. In the hospital for 2 days. I mean, that sounds incredibly scary. And to be honest, I think if he avoided major injury, like, that's awesome. And that's the most important thing. I don't know when to expect him back on the field. It sounds like they're going to have to discuss like long-term ramifications and where he's at. But I mean, it's unfortunate he got hurt. Michael just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's been a good player when he's been on the field, but his health's the most important thing. And I know they'll put that first and they'll make that the priority. Prayers to him, and hopefully he recovers. Wouldn't expect to see him on the field in the near future as a pass rusher, at least as of now. But I'm glad that he avoided the major injury. That's the main thing. And then the Deal brothers, it had been reported that they've been out of practice a few times, at least with Marcus. Sonny said he was returning to practice on Saturday, so he should be good. I hope it's the same thing with Devin. I think in both cases, my hope is that they're either dealing with something that you just need some rest or maybe load management, but you need both those guys on the field to be successful. Like you have to have them. So hopefully they're healthy, and we'll get more updates as fall camp continues. When we come back, AP Top 25 poll drops today. Should we expect the Frogs to be there? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. So AP Top 25 poll is dropping today on Monday. I won't react to that news because I'm recording on Sunday, but on Tuesday's episode, we'll have plenty of coverage of who's in the AP Top 25. I expect Texas to be the preseason number one team. Arch Manning, they were in the Final Four last year. Deservedly so, a lot of hype around the Texas Longhorns. I don't think TCU will be there. I'll be pleasantly surprised if they are. I mean, as far as Big 12 teams that I feel like will be ranked, Iowa State, Arizona State, Kansas State, possibly BYU, even though they were in the coaches poll. I think the Jake Retzlaff situation, him leaving, should put them out of the top 25, but we'll see. SMU, I would think they'll be ranked in the preseason poll. The good news is for TCU, I saw The Athletic. They actually do a ranking where they rank all the FBS teams. They had TCU at 33, so not too far off the top 25. Frogs are going to get opportunities early in the season. You know, North Carolina, that's a game that'll be on the national stage. I don't know how good the Tar Heels are going to be, but standalone ball game, chance to be impressive. And honestly, if you win against Bill Belichick, I think that's something people are going to take notice of, even if this North Carolina team doesn't turn out to be much of a factor long-term throughout the season. Then you play SMU. And if you win that game, if you're 3-0 after non-con, if you beat North Carolina, Abilene Christian, and SMU at home, then I feel like you're sitting in the top 25. And that would set up potentially a top 25 matchup between TCU and Arizona State in the Big 12 conference opener for the Frogs on a Friday night in Tempe. Should be fun. So early season theatrics, chances to play right away. Again, I don't think we'll see the Frogs' name in the top 25. I've said that a few times now, so feel free to make fun of me if I end up being wrong. It doesn't really matter. I mean, we can point to plenty of examples in plenty of TCU seasons, 2014, 2022 most recently, where TCU wasn't ranked. And honestly, in both those seasons, wasn't really thought about in being ranked before the year. They win some big games, do some good things, and end up in the top 25. But if you're close, if you're kind of on the edge there, then you will have chances to rectify that and change it once the season starts, with games upcoming against North Carolina and SMU respectively. So intrigued to see just where they are or where they're not at, but like where the Big 12 teams are, common opponents, teams are going to play. Colorado, do they get a nod? I mean, they have a lot of roster turnover, but are they going to give the nod to Dion because of who he is and the talent that he's brought in over the past few seasons? A lot of intriguing storylines that we'll cover on Tuesday. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do it. We're like 8 subscribers away, but I'd love to get to 1,500 before football season starts. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're here Monday through Friday. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcasts, and of course also on YouTube. See you later, everybody.